I'd like to introduce our second speaker today, who is Christine Lai. And Christine is an international curator and practitioner who's worked with organisations including Tate, the Garden Museum, and Troy House Art Foundation. She is currently an assistant producer at Chinese Arts Now. She's a community gardener, and she runs a curatorial initiative called Pondeloo, which engages critically with the politics and representations of the bathroom, or the loo. So today she'll be talking about a bathroom photograph by Cass Bird, which was taken at the exclusive Met Gala in New York. Over to you, Christine.
Yeah. Yes. So just to give a little bit of context about Pondeloo, which is why it's kind of like a double meaning of pondering about the loo as well as being upon the loo. It kind of started as an idea of putting photography exhibitions in bathrooms, but then because of COVID, I then had to readapt it and then kind of fell into this kind of whole research minefield of the kind of politics that occurs within the space of the bathroom. And this image actually really captured my attention when I was doing all this stuff as well for Pondeloo. So this photo is taken in 2016 in what is dubbed the most important event in fashion of the year, called the Met Gala. And in particular, the exhibition that they were celebrating was called Antics Ex Machina at the Anna Wintour Costume Centre. Here we find actress Kate Hudson centre stage, equipped with a large pair of pliers in her left hand, her phone in her right, and a clutch neatly tucked under her shoulder, her armpit. Perhaps something that's worthy to note is the interpretation of the Met Gala's theme in this image that's kind of underlying it. The theme Manus Ex Machina can perhaps be interpreted by the fact that Hudson's holding these pliers, which kind of symbolize the kind of old labor force, especially in the site of the bathroom. It kind of gives a nod towards the hand of the plumber. Meanwhile, her dress itself is made through emerging technologies within fashion. If you look closely, they kind of seem like facets of plastic and kind of metal kind of bolts that kind of sew it together. So there's that kind of juxtaposition between Manus through the labor and Machina through the dress. All this is going on whilst Vogue editor, who's also really, he's kind of like Anna Wintour's right-hand woman, Grace Coddington, looks on at Hudson whilst heading to the bathroom. Yes, so this photograph is actually kept by longtime Vogue contributor and esteemed celebrity photographer Cass Bird, who's known for her intimate portraits of celebrities, and her style often renders a visual language that we find in vernacular photography and also documentary. In this photograph, we see this especially through her representation of the framing of the scene. There's a sense of dynamism in Hudson's body that kind of reminds us of the early Edward Maybridge horses, where we expect a series of snapshots before and after to kind of build upon the story and the kind of scenario that we're finding here. Her head is lobbed off by the top of the frame, which also enhances this feeling of speed that Maybridge also that we find in Maybridge's work, and it also kind of corresponds to Bird's and Cartier-Bresson's idea of the decisive moment that led up to her taking this photo. And what we're left with is kind of this idea that Cass Bird is getting a reflexive insider's view of this really exclusive event in fashion. This is also furthered by the lack of textual reference to what actually occurs in this image. Vogue publishes this series with no accompanying text or articles and merely just the captions made up with the celebrities' names. So when we're looking at this image, if it was in context, we're only left with the image itself and visually what it represents, and also the names of the celebrities, so biographically. I'm not going to be talking about it biographically today because I'm going to actually be discussing the editorial and kind of social cultural systems in place in order to contextualize this image and kind of work through it a little bit more. So first, if we think about the editorial system, This is a very, this image in terms of its organizer of the Met Gala, Vogue, is highly controlled through the system. We begin to see how it also contributes to the overall narrative of the Met Gala itself. The Met Gala, we find, is actually exists as what Daniel J. Boorstin terms as a pseudo event. Here, Vogue has planted the event almost as if specifically for reporting purposes. The images we find of the Met Gala stands in an, quote, ambiguous relation to the underlying reality of the event itself, as opposed to a genuine, spontaneous lived experience. By which I mean the general public's engagement with this event is therefore rendered completely through the disseminated media, ultimately controlled by Vogue and Anna Wintour, who sits at the top of Condé Nast, who owns Vogue. This is also furthered by the fact that in 2015, it was reported the notice was sent out to all the guests, dictating that the use of phones for photography and social media will not be permitted inside the gala. So again, there's a censorship around what is coming out. And what's even more interesting is that this photo of Kate Hudson by Cass also coincides in the same year as the documentary First Monday of May is released. This film documents the creation of the 2015 Met Gala exhibition and the event, China Through the Looking Glass. And together with the no phones policy, the documentary film and Bert's photos, we begin to reveal how an authorized account of these behind the scenes reality is culminated and work together to form several narratives which complement each other. Here we are provided supposedly with both the producer's side of the story through the documentary film, First Monday of May, and also the guests through Cass Bird's placement in the bathroom with the celebrities. And therefore the photo series becomes its form of representing an authentic take on the latter. So why did Vogue choose the toilets, or Cass Bird choose the toilets and not the traditional museum space to showcase this other narrative from the side of the guests? And this is kind of where my thinking from Pondeloo comes in as well. So the toilet has long been a site of contradictions and tensions, where one was constantly juggling between their private and public selves. On the one hand, it's a very highly engendered and ritualized space. There's a known shorthand within them that we all subconsciously seem to know what to do, of being silent, swift, and keeping to yourself. That also contributes to an awkwardness which permeates through the space. I mean, most of us are women here, but we've all heard our guy friends talk about the awkwardness when a guy comes right next to them in the urinal stores, and there's like loads of empty there, and they're like, don't look down, don't look down, don't look down. So there's all these kind of like social cues that we just seem to know happen. However, on the other hand, the public toilet also has a history of being represented in media as a site of debauchery. The private nature within public toilets, especially the toilet store, affords many to partake in unsanctioned activities. Taking drugs is a big contender in this category. Just think of the famous bathroom scene in Pulp Fiction where Mia Wallace openly snorts what she thinks is cocaine amongst the other women powdering her noses in front of the mirror. Despite being surrounded, the women are unfazed by the sight of someone doing drugs so openly in front of them, because this is building up on a common known practice within toilets. And this narrative that it is the public toilet is a space of debauchery. On the other hand, we also have things such as cottaging, which takes place in this public toilet space. For those who don't know, cottaging is the tradition where gay men would openly go to public bathrooms as a place for sex, including in the infamous case of George Michael in 1995, who was arrested in LA for engaging in a lewd act, and who actually then satiricized this whole endeavor through his music video Outside, which for anyone who hasn't watched it, I really recommend you to go and do, because it is so graphic and really represents the kind of like idea of cottaging in the kind of campiness way George Michael does things. So really these kind of media representations start to build upon a visual language that Bird therefore situates her work within. And we therefore take these photographs depicting celebrities acting out against the kind of structured haute couture glamour narrative that has been perpetuated by Vogue itself and the paparazzi through the kind of walk all the way up the stairs in the glamorous gowns perpetuates beforehand. Especially considering that this photograph sits within the second out of 3 series of photographs that Bird was commissioned to take within the bathrooms, as well as the fact that most captured within the bathrooms would have been well acquainted with Bird herself, because she is quite an esteemed celebrity photographer with a lot of covers for magazines like Vanity Fair, Harper's and Vogue herself. So really these kind of systems come together, you find that actually the celebrities, the kind of this bathroom as a site of debauchery, and the kind of narrative that Vogue wants to put out, they all kind of become enmeshed together and reinforce the idea that the bathroom itself becomes a performative space for the camera.